Pahalgam Terror Attack, a nation in mourning and a region on the brink. 1. The attack, a day of horror in Pahalgam. On 22 April 2025, Baisaran Valley near Pahalgam, a serene tourist destination in Jammu and Kashmir, became the site of a horrific terrorist attack. At approximately 3 p.m. Indian Standard Time, 5 armed assailants ambushed a group of tourists, opening fire indiscriminately. The victims, predominantly Hindu tourists from various parts of India, were targeted based on their religious identities. Among the 26 confirmed dead were 24 Hindus, 1 Christian, and 1 local Muslim guide. Over 20 others sustained injuries, many critically. Eyewitnesses recounted scenes of chaos as locals and tourists scrambled for safety amidst the gunfire. The attackers, believed to be affiliated with the Resistance Front, TRF, initially claimed responsibility but later retracted, citing a cyber intrusion. 2. TRF's role and alleged ties to Lashkar-e-Taiba. The Resistance Front, TRF, a relatively obscure militant group founded in 2019, has been active in Jammu and Kashmir, claiming responsibility for various attacks. Initially, TRF presented itself as a local resistance movement. However, subsequent investigations have revealed its connections to Lashkar-e-Taiba, LET, a Pakistan-based terrorist organization responsible for numerous attacks in India. Both groups share ideological similarities and operational tactics, leading to concerns about TRF acting as a proxy for LET in the region. The Pahalgam attack has brought TRF into the international spotlight, raising questions about the extent of LET's involvement in orchestrating attacks through proxy groups. 3. Intelligence and security failures. Despite prior intelligence warnings about potential terrorist activities in the region, security forces were ill-prepared to prevent the attack. Reports indicate that a terrorist based in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir had made a suggestive remark hinting at the attack days before its occurrence. However, these warnings were not acted upon effectively. The response from security forces was criticized as inadequate, with delayed and insufficient on-ground presence to protect civilians. This incident underscores significant gaps in intelligence implementation and operational readiness when faced with real-time threats. 4. Political and diplomatic fallout. In the aftermath of the attack, India held Pakistan responsible, citing alleged cross-border terrorist links. Prime Minister Narendra Modi condemned the attack, vowing to bring the perpetrators to justice. The Indian government took several retaliatory measures, including suspending the 1960 Indus Water Treaty and expelling Pakistani diplomats. Pakistan denied involvement and criticized India's actions, calling the suspension of the treaty an act of war. In response, Pakistan closed its airspace to Indian flights and suspended trade relations. The diplomatic crisis escalated further as both countries downgraded their diplomatic ties. 5. Suspension of the Indus Water Treaty. On 23 April 2025, India announced the immediate suspension of the Indus Water Treaty with Pakistan, halting data sharing and potentially allowing for increased water usage from the western rivers. This treaty, brokered by the World Bank and signed in 1960, governs the distribution of water from the Indus River system. It allots India the eastern rivers, Sutlej, Beas, Ravi, and Pakistan the western rivers, Indus, Jhelum, Chenab. Pakistan, highly reliant on this water for agriculture and hydropower, fears India's move could threaten its irrigation-based crops and food security, especially amid current climate-induced water shortages. 6. Suspension of the Shimla Agreement. Following India's suspension of the Indus Water Treaty, Pakistan announced the suspension of the 1972 Shimla Agreement on 24 April 2025. This peace treaty, signed between India and Pakistan, aimed at normalizing bilateral relations and resolving disputes peacefully. Pakistan's suspension of the agreement signifies a breakdown in diplomatic channels and raises concerns about the future of peaceful dialogue between the two nations. 7. Escalation along the line of control. In the days following the attack, tensions escalated along the line of control, LOC, between India and Pakistan. Pakistani troops initiated unprovoked firing across the LOC, targeting multiple Indian posts in the Poonch and Kupwara districts. This marked the most extensive cross-border exchange in 4 years, threatening the February 2021 ceasefire agreement. India responded swiftly and effectively to the violations, but the situation remains volatile, with both sides on high alert. 8. Eyewitness accounts and survivor testimonies. The Pahalgam attack was marked by its terrifying religious overtones, with the terrorists intentionally targeting non-Muslim tourists, particularly Hindus. Survivors of the attack have shared harrowing accounts of how the attackers conducted religious checks before executing their victims. As the terrorists stormed the area, they ordered the tourists to identify their religion. Those who were found to be non-Muslim, including Hindu men and a Christian tourist, were shot at point-blank range. Eyewitnesses reported that the terrorists specifically targeted Hindu men, further emphasizing the religious nature of the attack. A Christian tourist, who was among the group, lost his life alongside several Hindu men, with some survivors recalling the brutal nature of these executions. The women and children were spared from immediate harm. One survivor, a woman, recalled begging the terrorists to shoot her as well, stating that she could not live with the pain of witnessing such brutality. However, the terrorists ordered her to go back and inform her countrymen and India's leader, Narendra Modi, of what had happened. This chilling exchange, coupled with the deliberate targeting of men and religious affiliations, underscores the highly charged and divisive nature of the attack. In total, the attackers executed 24 Hindu men and 1 Christian man, a stark reflection of their religious motivations. Survivors, including women and children, were forced to watch the execution of their loved ones, leaving them traumatized for life. The incident has left a lasting mark on the affected families, highlighting the extent to which extremist ideologies have seeped into everyday life. This brutal attack, rooted in religious extremism, has reignited fears about the vulnerability of tourists, especially non-Muslim tourists, in the region. The survivors, while physically safe, will forever carry the psychological scars of witnessing the merciless targeting of their loved ones based on their faith. 9. Media and public response. The media's coverage of the Pahalgam attack has been extensive, with outlets providing real-time updates and in-depth analysis of the incident's implications. Public response has been one of shock and outrage, with citizens across India expressing solidarity with the victims and demanding justice. Social media platforms have been flooded with messages condemning the attack and calls for stronger measures to combat terrorism. The incident has reignited debates about national security policies and the effectiveness of counter-terrorism strategies. 10. A call for national unity and counteraction. In the wake of the attack, leaders from various political parties have called for national unity in the fight against terrorism. Prime Minister Narendra Modi emphasized the need for collective action and resilience, urging citizens to stand together in the face of adversity. Civil society organizations have organized candlelight vigils and peace marches to honor the victims and promote messages of harmony and coexistence. These efforts aim to counteract divisive narratives and foster a sense of shared responsibility in building a peaceful and secure nation. Conclusion: a nation in mourning and a region on the brink. The Pahalgam terror attack has left a nation in mourning and pushed a region to the brink of conflict. The loss of 26 innocent lives has sparked outrage and demands for justice, while the subsequent diplomatic and military escalations have heightened fears of a broader confrontation between two nuclear-armed neighbors. As the situation continues to evolve, the international community watches closely, hoping for restraint and a return to dialogue. However, the path to peace remains uncertain, and the scars of this tragedy may take years to heal.
नमस्ते, मेरे चैनल पर एक बार फिर आपका स्वागत है। आशा है कि अब तक आपको यह वीडियो पसंद आया होगा। मुझे यकीन है कि आप इसे अंत तक देखना चाहते होंगे, लेकिन यहाँ 1 मिनट का ब्रेक लेते हैं। मैं आपसे निवेदन करता हूँ कि कृपया इस वीडियो को लाइक और शेयर करें। साथ ही, अगर आप मेरे चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करें, तो ये बहुत अच्छा होगा। सब्सक्राइब करने के बाद नोटिफिकेशन या बेल आइकन को क्लिक करें। इससे यह सुनिश्चित होगा कि आप मेरी द्वारा रिलीज की गई उपयोगी, जानकारीपूर्ण, रोमांचक और थ्रिलिंग वीडियो कभी नहीं मिस करेंगे। अगर आप वीडियो पर कमेंट कर सकें तो और भी अच्छा होगा। कि आपको यह वीडियो कितना पसंद आया। अगर आप चाहते हैं कि मैं किसी विशेष विषय पर वीडियो बनाऊं, या अगर आप अपनी कहानियां मेरे साथ साझा करना चाहते हैं जिन्हें आप मेरे चैनल पर देखना चाहेंगे, आइए इस YouTube परिवार को 1 लाख सब्सक्राइबर्स तक और उसके पार ले जाएं। मैं इन वीडियो को बनाने में बहुत मेहनत करता हूं और यह मेरे लिए एक पूर्णकालिक गतिविधि है। केवल आपका प्यार और प्रोत्साहन मुझे आगे बढ़ने के लिए प्रेरित कर सकता है। धन्यवाद। ओह हाँ, कृपया मुझे फेसबुक, इंस्टाग्राम, ट्विटर और लिंक्डइन पर भी फॉलो करें। आप QR कोड स्कैन करके इन सभी सोशल नेटवर्क्स पर मुझे फॉलो कर सकते हैं ताकि हम और भी करीब से जुड़ सकें। आइए अब जारी रखें, आनंद लें।
Shimla Agreement, 1972. A detailed overview. The Shimla Agreement is a significant bilateral agreement between India and Pakistan, signed on 3 July 1972 in Shimla, Himachal Pradesh. The agreement was signed between Indira Gandhi, the Prime Minister of India, and Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, the President of Pakistan. Its purpose was to normalize relations between the two countries following the 1971 India-Pakistan War. Under this agreement, both countries committed to respecting each other's territorial and political sovereignty, resolving disputes through peaceful means, and promoting bilateral dialogue. The agreement was signed after the India-Pakistan War of 1971, which had resulted in the creation of Bangladesh and a significant shift in the political landscape of South Asia. The war had deepened tensions between the two countries, making a peaceful resolution and normalization of relations necessary. 1. Context before the Shimla Agreement. The 1971 India-Pakistan War. The 1971 India-Pakistan War was fought due to the Bangladesh Liberation War, which was supported by India. The war resulted in India defeating Pakistan and leading to the separation of East Pakistan, which became the independent country of Bangladesh. Following this war, there was a need for reconciliation and normalization of relations between India and Pakistan, leading to the Shimla talks. The war had left both nations in a state of deep hostility, and this agreement was aimed at stabilizing relations. After the war, the leaders of both countries decided to meet in Shimla to discuss how to resolve political and territorial disputes and create a framework for future cooperation. 2. Signatories of the Shimla Agreement. The Shimla Agreement was signed on 3 July 1972 in Shimla by the following leaders: Indira Gandhi, the Prime Minister of India; Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, the President of Pakistan. Additionally, the Foreign Secretaries of both India and Pakistan signed the agreement, focusing on peace and bilateral relations between the two countries. 3. Was the Shimla Agreement part of a greater agreement? The Shimla Agreement was a standalone agreement between India and Pakistan aimed at improving bilateral relations, ensuring regional peace, and addressing specific territorial issues, especially concerning Kashmir. While it was not directly linked to other major agreements such as the Indus Water Treaty, it was part of a broader post-war initiative to stabilize relations after the 1971 India-Pakistan War. This agreement primarily sought to address the Kashmir dispute, territorial integrity, and regional security issues between the two nations, independent of the Indus Water Treaty, which primarily dealt with water sharing between India and Pakistan. 4. Terms and conditions of the Shimla Agreement. The key provisions and decisions of the Shimla Agreement were: respect for sovereignty. Both India and Pakistan agreed to respect each other's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Pakistan acknowledged the independence of Bangladesh, and both countries confirmed the importance of respecting each other's territorial claims. The Kashmir issue. The Kashmir dispute was to be resolved through bilateral discussions between India and Pakistan, without the involvement of any third party, including the United Nations. This was a significant clause, as it emphasized that the Kashmir dispute would be resolved between the two nations, bypassing international mediation. Peace and security on the borders. Both countries agreed to maintain peace along their borders, particularly in Jammu, Poonch, and Rajouri regions, and to avoid any military escalation or border conflicts. Implementation of prior agreements. The Shimla Agreement reaffirmed the commitment to honor previous agreements, including the Lahore Agreement on various bilateral issues. Pakistan also requested the release of its prisoners from India, a request which was acknowledged by India. 5. Impact of suspending or annulling the Shimla Agreement. If the Shimla Agreement was suspended or annulled, the following impacts could be anticipated. Impact on India. Escalation of the Kashmir dispute. The Kashmir issue would likely escalate if the agreement were annulled, as bilateral talks would end, leading to a potential internationalization of the issue, which could make the dispute even more difficult to resolve. Increased border tensions. The agreement was a key instrument in ensuring border security and maintaining peace along the line of control, LOC. If it were nullified, tensions would rise at the borders, particularly in regions like Jammu, Rajouri, and Poonch, and the risk of armed conflict could increase. Impact on Pakistan. Loss of stability in relations. The Shimla Agreement marked a significant step towards restoring relations with India after the 1971 war. If it were suspended, Pakistan would lose a critical avenue for diplomatic engagement and peaceful resolution of disputes. Continued international pressure on Kashmir. If Pakistan chose to revisit the Kashmir issue in international forums, as it did before the agreement, it could face significant diplomatic pressure, affecting its relations not only with India but also with other global powers. Impact on economic and military security. The peace and cooperation fostered by the Shimla Agreement allowed Pakistan to focus on its internal development rather than constantly being engaged in border conflicts. Annulment of the agreement would put Pakistan's economic and military security at risk. 6. Incidents of suspension or violation of the Shimla Agreement. 1999 Kargil War. Despite the Shimla Agreement, the Kargil War in 1999 broke out due to Pakistani soldiers and militants infiltrating the Indian side of the Line of Control, LOC, in Kashmir. This conflict violated the spirit of the Shimla Agreement, which was supposed to maintain peace along the borders. The war ended with India regaining control of the territory, but the incident underscored the fragile nature of the peace established by the Shimla Agreement. 2001 Indian Parliament Attack. The 2001 Indian Parliament attack led to heightened tensions between India and Pakistan, with India accusing Pakistan-based militants of being behind the attack. Although this event did not directly breach the Shimla Agreement, it strained the relationship between the two countries and tested the limits of the agreement's peace-building efforts. 7. The Shimla Agreement and its relation to the Indus Water Treaty. While the Shimla Agreement and the Indus Water Treaty are two distinct agreements, they are indirectly related in terms of ensuring peaceful relations between India and Pakistan. The Indus Water Treaty, 1960, was an agreement on water sharing between India and Pakistan, primarily addressing the control of water from the Indus River and its tributaries. The Shimla Agreement, signed in 1972, focused more on territorial integrity and peaceful resolution of disputes, particularly the Kashmir issue. Both agreements emphasized diplomatic cooperation, but the Indus Water Treaty focused on natural resources, while the Shimla Agreement dealt with political and territorial disputes. If the Shimla Agreement were annulled, it could impact the Indus Water Treaty indirectly by heightening tensions and making future cooperation on shared resources more difficult, especially if disputes between the two nations were to escalate. Conclusion. The Shimla Agreement remains a cornerstone in the history of India-Pakistan relations. It was a significant attempt at post-war reconciliation and normalization, addressing critical issues such as Kashmir, border security, and bilateral dialogue. While it has had its share of violations and tensions, especially in the form of the Kargil War, it remains a critical framework for maintaining peace between the two nations. If this agreement were annulled or suspended, it would likely lead to a breakdown in diplomatic relations, an escalation in the Kashmir dispute, and a more volatile border situation, which could have far-reaching consequences for both countries. The Indus Water Treaty, 1960. A detailed overview. The Indus Water Treaty, IWT, is one of the most significant water-sharing agreements between India and Pakistan, signed on 19 September 1960, with the mediation of the World Bank. It governs the distribution of water from the Indus River system between the two countries, and despite decades of tension, it has generally been adhered to, although there have been moments of discord. One precursor to the Indus Water Treaty. The Indus River system consists of 6 major rivers: the Indus, Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Beas, and Sutlej. This river system is one of the most important in South Asia, providing water for agriculture, drinking, and industrial use, especially in Pakistan. Before partition in 1947, the river system was used by undivided India. However, after partition, the sharing of water from the Indus system became a major issue between India and Pakistan, both newly formed nations with competing needs. Partition of India, 1947, created the need for an agreement, as the majority of the river system's water flowed into Pakistan's territories after the division of British India. The Ravi, Beas, and Sutlej rivers, which flow primarily through India, were critical to Pakistan's water needs, while the Indus, Jhelum, and Chenab rivers, which flowed mostly through Pakistan, were crucial to India. 2. When was it signed and the signatories? The Indus Water Treaty was signed in 1960 between India and Pakistan. The treaty was the result of efforts to resolve disputes over water sharing between the two countries following their partition in 1947. The World Bank played a key role in mediating the agreement, especially because of the increasing significance of water to both countries' agriculture and livelihoods. The treaty was signed by the following signatories: Jawaharlal Nehru, Prime Minister of India; Ayub Khan, President of Pakistan; W.A.B. Elif, Vice President of the World Bank, mediator. 3. Was the Indus Water Treaty part of a greater agreement? Although the Indus Water Treaty is a standalone agreement, it was part of broader efforts to stabilize relations between India and Pakistan post-partition. The treaty addressed one of the most contentious issues between the two nations: access to water resources. The treaty was also seen as a way to prevent further conflict over water disputes. The treaty was signed 3 years after the 1958 visit of Pakistan's President Ayub Khan to the World Bank to seek mediation. It was a crucial part of the World Bank's role in stabilizing Indo-Pakistani relations in the early post-independence period. 4. Key terms and conditions of the Indus Water Treaty. The Indus Water Treaty divides the waters of the Indus River system into 3 parts. Eastern rivers, Ravi, Beas, Sutlej, these were allocated to India for exclusive use. Western rivers, Indus, Jhelum, Chenab, these were allocated to Pakistan for exclusive use. Key terms of the treaty included: India's rights on eastern rivers. India has the right to fully utilize the Ravi, Beas, and Sutlej rivers for irrigation and other purposes. Pakistan's rights on western rivers. Pakistan is given the rights to use the Indus, Jhelum, and Chenab rivers for all its needs, irrigation, drinking, etc., with India allowed to use them only for limited purposes like hydropower generation. Water Flow Agreement. India was granted the right to construct dams and other projects on the eastern rivers, while on the western rivers, India could build only limited storage and diversion works. The treaty provides specific guidelines on the amount of water India can store or divert on the western rivers. 5. Dispute Resolution Mechanism. The treaty also includes a mechanism for resolving disputes, which involves setting up a permanent Indus Commission comprising representatives from both countries. The Commission meets annually to discuss any issues related to the management of water flows, water sharing concerns, or infrastructure development. In case of a disagreement, the treaty provides a provision for appointing an independent neutral expert or a court of arbitration to resolve the dispute. The World Bank initially played a major role in mediating disputes, but it largely withdrew from active mediation in the 1980s. 6. Impact of annulment of the treaty on Pakistan. If the Indus Water Treaty were annulled, the consequences for Pakistan would be severe. Loss of access to vital water sources. Pakistan heavily depends on the western rivers, Indus, Jhelum, and Chenab. Without access to these rivers, Pakistan's entire irrigation system would collapse, and its agriculture, which is the backbone of its economy, would be devastated. Pakistan's Punjab province would be particularly impacted, as it receives water primarily from these rivers. Environmental catastrophe. The annulment of the treaty would lead to a humanitarian crisis. Agriculture would be crippled, and millions of people would face water shortages. The Mangla Dam, on the Jhelum, and the Tarbela Dam, on the Indus, could be severely impacted, affecting not just agriculture but also power generation in Pakistan. Economic collapse. Agriculture is Pakistan's second-largest economic sector, and the loss of water would lead to catastrophic crop failures. This could reduce Pakistan's GDP by a significant margin. Social and political strife. Given the political and social importance of water, its loss could trigger mass unrest and even exacerbate existing tensions between India and Pakistan. The regions of Punjab and Sindh in Pakistan would be the hardest hit. 7 locations impacted by water flowing from the Indus Water Treaty. In Pakistan, the following cities, districts, and villages would be directly impacted by the water flow from the rivers covered in the Indus Water Treaty. Punjab, the province that relies the most on the water from the Indus, Chenab, Jhelum, and Ravi rivers. Major cities like Lahore, Faisalabad, Multan, and Rawalpindi are highly dependent on these waters. Sindh, cities like Karachi, Hyderabad, and Sukkur also depend on the waters of the Indus for drinking and irrigation. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, cities like Peshawar and the district of Mardan are also reliant on water resources from the Indus River. 8 historical pauses or violations of the treaty. Over the years, there have been a few instances when the Indus Water Treaty faced challenges. 1965 War. During the India-Pakistan War, both countries were engaged in heavy military activity near the river basins, but the treaty was not violated, despite tensions. The water flow continued under the treaty's terms. 1978 to 1984. During this period, India faced accusations of non-compliance with certain clauses of the treaty, especially regarding the construction of hydroelectric projects on the western rivers. 1990s, Pakistan expressed concerns over India's construction of Baglihar Dam on the Chenab River, and the dispute was taken to the World Bank. In 2007, an independent neutral expert ruled in favor of India on this matter. 2019 Pulwama attack. After the 2019 terrorist attack in Pulwama, India withdrew from a proposed meeting of the Indus Commission, but the treaty was not formally annulled, and the water sharing continued despite tensions. Conclusion. The Indus Water Treaty remains one of the most successful international agreements in the South Asian region, having survived multiple periods of tension between India and Pakistan. Although there have been occasional pauses and disputes, the agreement itself has held firm due to its well-structured dispute resolution mechanisms and the vital importance of water resources for both nations. However, any attempt to annul or significantly alter the treaty would likely lead to serious consequences for Pakistan, affecting its agriculture, economy, and social stability.
Bharatam Mahabharatam Ganga Narmada Punyatirtam Sindhu Saraswati Kaveri Jeevana Karana Mula Tattva